Getting mixed reviews out of a committee assessing claims that he, quote, sexed up intelligence reports on Iraq's weapons. In a 54-page verdict, the parliamentary committee cleared Blair and his media chief, Alistair Campbell, of deliberately misleading lawmakers, but the committee also criticized the ruling administration, berating it for putting undue emphasis on a report that Iraq could deploy chemical and biological weapons in just 45 minutes. Leaders from both the right and left of Mr. Blair are demanding an official apology from the Prime Minister, but today Mr. Blair's foreign secretary defended the accuracy of the documents the British are calling the dossiers.
The Foreign Affairs Committee said that they had no doubt that the threat posed to United Kingdom forces was genuinely perceived as a real and present danger, and that the steps taken to protect them were justified by the information available at the time.
And as the debate over what we all knew before the war rages on, combat continues in Iraq with deadly results. 3 more Americans killed in a 24-hour period this weekend. 1 shot in the head at close range while waiting to buy a soda in Baghdad. West of the capital in the town of Ramadi, a rocket-propelled grenade injured 4 more U.S. soldiers. Attackers also hit 2 journalists. A British cameraman was shot in the head on Saturday, and an NBC sound engineer died today from wounds he sustained in a grenade attack last month. And a cruel ending for a Marine who helped rescue Private First Class Jessica Lynch. 21-year-old Josh Spear had been home just 4 days when his car veered off a road in South Carolina Saturday morning. Spear was on his way to see his fiancée when the accident happened. She says he was bringing her engagement ring. The bitter irony of Spear's death may be impossible to make any sense out of, but back in Iraq, the string of attacks on U.S. soldiers does seem to be following a certain pattern. As NBC's Jim Miklaszewski reports now, it is a pattern that has U.S. military officials increasingly concerned about just what kind of peace they've achieved in Iraq and how many Americans need to be there to maintain that peace.
General Tommy Franks, who drove Saddam Hussein from power, turned over his command today at Central Command in Tampa.
We're covering a lot of other bases instead of just focusing on Scott Peterson.
Chris, do you think they fully investigated other areas?
I have my own questions about it, Larry. You know, for example, we're talking about this Evelyn Hernandez file and whether it should be turned over. The declaration that was made by the lead investigator in the prosecution's motion to quash this subpoena, or I should say the city attorney's motion to quash this subpoena, says that we're afraid that potential witnesses in the Hernandez file might not come forward if the file, the criminal investigative file, were turned over to the Peterson defense team. Well, this case is more than a year old. The case has gone cold. If they haven't talked to all of the witnesses that they have in this case at this point in time, if they haven't talked to those witnesses and
we have going with France, so there's no reason why Germany and France should not be asked.
Here at home, Americans are growing more divided over the war, questioning the motives but supporting the troops. In a Gallup poll taken 1 week ago, 56% of Americans polled say the war in Iraq was worth fighting. 43% disagree. That's well down from the 73% who said they supported the war last April. But in last week's poll, American support for the post-war mission to rebuild Iraq remains strong. 69% said U.S. troops should stay in Iraq. 75% said the number of U.S. casualties is not unacceptable. And more Americans will surely die before the U.S. mission ultimately succeeds.
It is essential that we succeed. Failure in the peace is no more an option than failure in the war.
Pentagon officials claim some numbers of American troops will remain in Iraq until democracy takes root. And that, they predict, will take years. Jim Miklaszewski, NBC News, the Pentagon.